We're going to continue talking about narrative writing and how to continue getting started on our rough draft. So think back to the first time that we started this piece. You had your heart map and your important people and places list out. Go ahead and get that out again. It doesn't hurt to have that in front of you, just in case it makes you have an idea in your writing. You can also have your pre-writing paper out if you chose to write something down. Some of you may have just thought of this in your head, but if you have your little map of beginning, middle, and end, that's always nice to have in front of you to help you remember where you wanted to go with your story. My story was about getting my puppy Callie. I finally finished my story from the beginning, the middle, and the end. I'm going to go ahead and read to you what I have, but then we're going to talk a little bit about something. On May 5th, my dad and I drove to Ohio to pick up my new puppy. The drive seemed like forever. I was so excited to meet my new puppy. I am going to name her Callie. When we got home, a lot of my family wanted to meet her. My grandma and grandpa even drove to my house to meet her. She was very sleepy from the long drive. At night, we played with toys and then we got tired. We went to bed at the end of the day. I am so happy I got my dog. Now, if you are listening to this and going, "My story doesn't sound like that," don't panic. Every author is different. Your story might be a lot shorter than mine, or your story might be a lot longer than mine. That's okay, because your story is special to you. If your story is only the same length as my first beginning part, that's okay. We practice writing so that we can get better. It doesn't always mean that you have a great story if it's really long. Sometimes people can write amazing short stories that are really tiny. But today we're going to talk about adding details to our story. Sometimes it's hard for us to keep writing with our pencil or to keep typing on our keyboard because our arms and our fingers get tired. Sometimes, even though I don't like to admit it, I get a little lazy with my writing and I don't add in all of those fun extra parts. So, I went back and I took a look and I decided that I should add a couple of details. Now, I'm still in my rough draft. I'm not going in through and I'm not really adding all of the extra stuff, but I wanted to show you something that you could think about adding as you continue to write your story. So I'm going to go to the next page and I added a few words in purple. Okay, so I added about one sentence to each of my paragraphs. And if you are finished with your story today, I encourage you to go back to what you wrote and see if there's anything that you can add. You might want to add something to the beginning. You might want to add something in the middle. You might want to add something at the end. Today, we're going to talk about adding those important details to make your story more interesting to read. So I'm going to reread you my story, and I want you to think, how do those new purple words make the story more interesting? On May 5th, my dad and I drove to Ohio to pick up my new puppy. The drive seemed like forever. I was so excited to meet my new puppy. I'm going to name her Callie. When I finally met Callie, she was the cutest thing in the whole world. She was so tiny and fluffy. The car ride home seemed a lot faster since I had my new puppy to play with. When we got home, a lot of my family wanted to meet her. My grandma and grandpa even drove to my house to meet her. She was very sleepy from the long drive. Callie was shy at first, but then she began to get playful. At night, we played with toys, and then we got tired. We went to bed at the end of the day. I am so happy I got my dog. Did you think that my story sounded more interesting that time? Go ahead and pause the video and think, what about those purple words made the story more interesting? Did you think of it? I think that by adding those purple words, I was able to see a little bit more in my head. Remember that word visualize? I was able to visualize a little bit more in my head. I talked about how Callie was the cutest thing in the whole world and how she was so tiny and fluffy. That gave me a better picture, and I bet that gave you a better picture of what it was like when I first saw her. So today, remember, you are still working on the same story. You are not starting a new piece of writing. Whatever piece of writing you were working on whenever I started my story about Callie is the same piece of writing that you're going to work on today. You might only have a couple of sentences and you need to continue writing your beginning, middle, and end. But if you think that you are all done, I want you to take a look back at your rough draft and see, are there any interesting details that I can add to my story? Do you have all of your story elements there? Does your story have characters? Did you talk about the setting, where it took place? Did you talk about the events that happened in the story? So I encourage you to take some time before you start writing to close your eyes and just think of what details you might want to add to your writing today. I'm so excited to see what you come up with. And remember, your teacher is here with you. Even though you're writing at home, that doesn't mean that you are alone. We're here to help, and it's just important that you try your best. Good luck!